Indiana Dunes National Park, we have over 200 species of bee. The reason for that is because of the incredible diversity of habitats. We have incredible variety of plant species. Even soil types. There's some bees that prefer to nest in the sand. There's some bees that prefer to nest in kind of more clay type substrates. So Indiana Dunes provides all of those different types of habitats and all of the needs for all these bees. Bumblebees are our only native social bee. Honeybees are actually not native. So when we're talking about conserving our bees and our pollinators, we're talking about our native pollinators, which is the vast majority of diversity here. Native bees are the ones that are really the workhorses of pollination. They're the ones that are providing the pollination service for our native plants, but they're actually providing much of the pollination service for our crops as well. Most of the pollination that's happening in ag systems at like apple orchards and things like that, and healthy ecosystems, is done by native bees, not by honeybees. 1 of every 3 bites that you take of food comes from an insect pollinator. And so if we want to eat the things that we enjoy eating, we need to have pollinators. Pollinators are keystone species. They're vital for the entire ecosystem. I was always sort of that weird kid who was, looking at rocks and looking at like the little things, where a lot of the other kids were kind of, seeing an ant and smashing it. I was trying to kind of pick them up and hold them and cuddle them, and I got stung by a lot of things as a kid. I was born and raised near the Indiana Dunes. I ended up doing my bachelor's in science in biology at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. Did a stint in the Peace Corps in Bolivia, which is where I became really interested in entomology. And then I ended up doing my PhD at the University of Minnesota in entomology. So I went from the tropics to the tundra to do my work. And came back here a few years ago and sort of feel like I'm coming full circle here at Indiana Dunes National Park, doing what I love. Once you start looking at insects, especially under the microscope, when you start looking at that up close and seeing how intricately it's put together and just all the details, it's beautiful. Pollinators are a keystone species. Because they provide that pollinator service, they create seeds. Many plants can't reproduce without having the service of a pollinator. There's been some studies that have documented local declines of native bee species, and they have corresponded to declines also of plant species that they pollinate. And so if you remove the pollinators, you're not just removing the pollinators, you're removing the entire community. For the National Park Service, we want to play a part in helping to conserve the pollinators, so we have an opportunity to do that. But we want to be able to understand what it is that we can do to best conserve them. We don't have a lot of control over some of those aspects, but we have a control over maybe what type of habitat we can provide for them. So much of our on-the-ground work that we do here at the National Park is helping to provide habitat for the pollinators, making sure that the pollinator habitat that we're providing is what they need, and that's where the science comes in. At Indiana Dunes National Park and some other parks in the Great Lakes, we're trying to understand that. We're trying to understand what flowers they need the most. We're trying to understand what aspects of the habitat best increase their diversity, provide for the most types of species. We're also trying to understand what threats or stressors might be coming down the line and what impacts those might have. So we want to encourage people to have pollinator gardens, or we like to say you can have a little mini national park and provide habitat in your backyard, but you don't want to just provide lunch. They like to have their 3 square meals a day. If you can have flowers that are blooming in the springtime and the summertime, and even late into the fall, into October, that's really important. A lot of the species are trying to gather as much pollen as they can to have in their nests to gain enough fat stores so that they can make it through the winter.